Imagine spending 88 days in jail for a crime you didn't commit, and the person who put you there was the man who used to call you his little Disney princess. Not a stranger, not some random online troll, the man you almost married, the man you emptied your savings account for. That's where we're gonna have to start today. Because a toxic love story on Netflix is not really a love story at all, is it? It's a story about what happens when the fairy tale we sell little girls growing up turns into a prison. So buckle up, Buttercup. Let's get into it. What's up, everybody? It's your girl Indescribable, aka Geraldine Lake, and I am back with another psychological breakdown of one of the most watched true crime documentaries on Netflix this week, A Toxic Love Story. Okay, so let me tell you where my head was at the whole time I was watching this. First of all, y'all like my hair? I feel like a Targaryen. But anyway, okay, so let me tell you where my head was at the whole time I was watching this, all right? I kept pausing it. Not because it was slow, but because every 10 minutes, the floor just completely caved out from underneath me. So you think you know who the villain is, and then the documentary will be like, nah, try it again. And by the end, I was like mad. Not even really confused because the evidence was there, but just mad because explain this to me. Underneath all the twists and turns, this is a story about how easy it is to destroy a woman when she has been trained her entire life to be agreeable, and how the people who love the abuser will defend him right up until the prison gates. Now, let me walk you through it, okay? And let me tell you what I actually think. Back in 2013, Michelle Hadley was 26 years old, living near Anaheim and doing the same thing a lot of us have done. She was online looking for love. She matched with a man named Ian Diaz, and here is the little detail that made me tilt my head a little bit. They bonded over Disneyland. Two grown adults falling in love for each other over the happiest place on earth. And it sounds sweet, but that's exactly the problem, because that's how he hooked that girl, okay? They moved super fast, taking trips, meeting the family, moving in together. All of it was on fast forward, and when it came time to buy a condo, Michelle fronted the down payment. She cleared out her savings, and he covered the mortgage on paper, but the cash that got them in the door, that came from Michelle. Now, let me say what a lot of us were thinking while we were watching this. That sounds like a man who sold her a dream, okay? When somebody moves you at that speed, love bombing you, buying you the fantasy, getting you to put your money where his mouth is before you've had time to really breathe and take it all in, that's not passion, okay? That's a setup. So slow down when a man is rushing you. Go to hell to anybody who tells a woman that being swept off of her feet always means that she should turn her brain off. Because what is that, okay? Now I want to sit in this Disney thing for a second, because the documentary, it flirts with it, but I want to go all the way there, okay? Disney princess theory is the idea that the stories that we hand little girls quietly teach them what love is supposed to look like. And what does it look like? A girl who is pretty, patient, kind, above all good, gets noticed by a prince, and the prince rescues her. And that rescue is the reward for being good. You don't chase, you don't choose, you wait, you endure. And if you are lovely and pretty enough, you'll get chosen. Here's the part that should make the hair on the back of your neck stand up. Ian compared Michelle to Belle from Beauty and the Beast. Think about that story for a second. A girl is held prisoner by a literal beast. A man with a temper who controls her every move. And the whole movie is telling us that if she just loves him hard enough and stays patient enough, her love will tame him and turn the monster into a prince. We hand that to 5-year-olds and call it romance. So when a controlling man looks at a woman and says, "You are my Belle," that is not a compliment, at least not to me, okay? That's a job description. He's telling you who he needs you to be. Stay, endure, fix me with your goodness. And Michelle, like so many of us, had been marinating in that message her entire life. So the controlling behavior didn't read as a red flag at first. It read as the story going according to plan. And the control was heavy, y'all. Michelle described Ian installing security cameras so he could watch her in the kitchen, calling her constantly when he was out, needing to know where she was and what she was doing, picking her outfits, making her wear fake nails, making her pierce her belly button, trying to reshape her into whatever picture was in his head. That is not a quirky boyfriend. That is a man treating a grown woman like a doll. He's customizing. Financial surveillance, physical control, molding her appearance. Go to hell, okay? Just go straight to hell. But then it went further. Ian pressured her to have sex with another man while he watched. She didn't want to. They clashed over it, and eventually she gave in. And I want to be careful and honest here, because this is the part that the internet loves to be cruel about. When you are deep in a relationship with a controlling person, no stops feeling like an option, okay? Consent that gets worn down by pressure over weeks and months is not the free yes that people pretend it is. She was not weak, but she was managed, okay? Michelle eventually left him After about 2 years, she had had enough of the control and the fantasies being forced onto her, so she walked. Good for her, okay? I know that took a lot of strength, all right? But here's a piece that matters, and I want us to handle it with a lot of care, okay? Somewhere during the fallout, Michelle went through what she now understands to be a dissociative episode tied to trauma. She was even found wandering in the Arizona desert. During that period, she sent Ian 2 angry emails under her own name that leaned on the religious language that she grew up with, basically warning him that he would have to answer for what he did. A woman in that much pain that her mind checked out and she ended up lost in the desert is not a punchline, okay? But I want you to hold on to the 2 emails because they become the murder weapon later. Not literally, but you'll see, okay? Now, let me get into something that I have intense feelings about, all right? Michelle carried herself as the good girl, the self-proclaimed good girl, church background, do the right thing, keep the peace, don't make a scene. Trust that if you are honest, the truth will protect you. And I need women everywhere to hear me on this. That image is often the very thing that gets us hurt. When you're raised in that purity culture, good girl, religious pressure cooker, you learn some dangerous lessons. You learn to swallow your anger because anger is not ladylike. You learn to suffer quietly because suffering is somehow holy. You learn not to report, not to fight loud, not to embarrass anybody because a good girl handles things gracefully. You even learn to feel that your pain is a punishment that you must have earned somehow. Now, watch what that programming did in real life. When the machine came for Michelle, part of her strategy was to wait. To sit in a jail cell and trust that a lack of evidence would somehow set her free because good girls believe the system is fair and the truth wins on its own. That belief nearly buried her. The good girl script tells you to be quiet and patient at the exact moment your life requires you to be loud and dangerous. And to the culture that trains women to be easy to victimize and then blames them for not fighting harder, go straight to hell. Okay, now the documentary pivots because after Michelle, Ian married a woman named Angela Connell. And Angela is, well, just stay tuned. Okay, before Ian, Angela had a relationship with a man named Jason Rayburn, a police officer that she had met at a bar. And early on, Angela told Jason she had stage 4 cervical cancer. She told his friends and family too. Everybody rallied around her. She wore wigs and scarves and hats, and she used the medical tape and tubing to fake the look of a chemo port. So when Jason wanted proof, she sent a photo that supposedly showed her own POV, right, sitting in the chemo chair. He found that exact photo on Google. It belonged to some other cancer patient's blog. And when the clinic she pointed to was contacted, turns out they were not treating her for cancer at all. They were treating her for a mole removal. Let me be clear, okay, about where the humor lives, because faking an illness is tied to real disorder, and I'm not laughing at anybody's mental health. What I am side-eyeing, though, is the sheer audacity of the production value, the tape, the tubing, Googling a stranger's chemotherapy to pass it off as your own, building a costume to sell cancer to a man who was rallying around you and grieving for you the entire time. The betrayal of that is staggering, y'all. Angela, girl, go to hell, okay? Now, when Jason and a friend named Mary confronted her, of course, Angela doubled down. She would not admit a single thing. She just walked out. And that pattern, lie, get caught, refuse to break, walk away, is the whole engine of everything that comes next. Then Angela married Ian, and Angela told Ian that she was pregnant with twins. Obviously, she wasn't because she's a habitual liar. And Ian eventually found a doctor's sonogram and pregnancy test that had been colored in with blue marker, okay? That's the level of delusion we're working with here. Please explain to me how you DIY imaginary twins. Anyway, now let's take a break, okay? Because here is the dark mirror that I could not stop thinking about. Michelle and Angela look like total opposites. One is the good girl who endures, and one is just straight up a liar who performs. But they're two sides of the same coin. Both of them learned that the way a woman earns love and attention is by fitting into a story. So Michelle fit the story by being perfectly good and patient. Angela fit a different narrative by being pitied. The sick woman, the pregnant woman, the victim. Both are performing a version of womanhood just to get chosen. One turned it inward and got quiet. One turned it outward and became dangerous. The conditioning is the same. Now the machine turns on Michelle for real. In 2016, Angela reports that she is getting violent. Threatening emails from someone calling themselves Lilith is truth. And suspicion lands immediately on Michelle, the former fiancé, the obvious jilted ex-lover, right? Now let me break down that name. Lilith, because it was chosen on purpose in old Jewish mythology, Lilith was said to be the first woman ever, made from the same earth as Adam. And when Adam demanded that she submit to him, that she lie beneath him, she refused. She said that she was his equal and not his servant. And for refusing to submit, she was cast out and rewritten as a demon, a monster, a danger to men and children. Sit with why that name is perfect for this frame job. Lilith is the woman who would not obey and got branded evil for it. So dressing Michelle up as Lilith is truth does two things at once. It paints her as the scorned, unhinged ex, and on a deeper level, it taps into the oldest story we have about what a woman becomes when she leaves a man and refuses to submit. She becomes the demon. She becomes the threat. Michelle's real crime in the eyes of this scheme was the same as Lilith's. She left. She would not stay and be bail. And the frame turned that into evidence that she was dangerous. That is genuinely sinister writing, and it worked because the police bought it. The emails did not stop. They actually escalated. Graphic images, threats against the twins Angela was supposedly carrying. And then it got even darker. Craigslist posts made to look like they came from Michelle posing as Angela, inviting strange men to the condo to act out a rape fantasy, sending actual strangers to a real address to assault a real person. Go to hell don't even cover this one, y'all. On the strength of all that, Michelle was hit with a restraining order and then arrested. Spent 88 days in jail. The local news painted her as the villain in a jealous ex-revenge plot. She even got a death threat once her name hit the papers. Her parents had to choose between bailing her out and paying for a lawyer. They gambled on the lawyer. Okay, now let's zoom out a bit because this is the part that should scare every single one of us who has ever dated online. Look at how this frame was built. Emails routed through multiple accounts and VPNs to make it look like they came from Michelle. Her own old emails, the ones she sent during her dissociative episode using that religious language, used as a template so the fake ones would sound just like her. A restraining order weaponized so that any contact looked like a violation. Craigslist was used to aim strangers at a target. This is a stalking and harassment campaign built entirely out of everyday internet tools that any one of us could touch every single day. And here's the piece that makes it all work. The system tends to believe the person holding the documentation. Angela had a stack of threatening emails addressed to her. She looked like the victim on paper. Michelle just had her word. When it is a paper trail versus a person saying, I did not do this, the paper trail wins almost every single time. And even when the paper trail is a lie that somebody built on purpose. Now, add the last ingredient. Ian was a deputy US Marshal. Law enforcement, the man whose entire job was protecting federal judges and moving prisoners. So when this couple walked into a police station, they didn't walk in as just two random people on the street. They walked in wearing the badge of credibility. Who is a detective going to believe? The officer of the court and his pregnant, terrorized wife, or the bitter ex-girlfriend? The scheme did not just use technology. It used the way we hand automatic trust to the people who look official. And that can go to hell too. And now here's the twist that flips the entire documentary on its head. For most of this story, you are led to believe the worst case is that Angela, the pathological liar, cooked this up on her own to torment her husband's ex. Now that would already be evil, but it goes a little further. Ian, the marshal, the supposed protector, the victim's loving husband, was in on it. Some accounts point to him as the driving mind behind the whole thing. And the motive is so small, it's insulting, okay? The condo. Remember, Michelle emptied her savings for that down payment. If Michelle went to prison, she was out of the picture, and Ian could fully own the home that she paid to get into. He tried to trade a woman's freedom, her name, her safety for some real estate. A man sworn to uphold the law used everything he knew about the law to bury an innocent woman for a 2-bedroom. I'm telling y'all now, it's going to be a whole lot of go to hell in this video, okay? Ian, go to hell. Here is how it shook out. Once his story fell apart and the fraud got exposed, Angela was arrested. She pleaded guilty to fraud, false imprisonment, and falsely reporting a crime, and she served about 5 years. Ian did not plead to anything. He fought it, went to trial, and was convicted of conspiracy, cyber stalking, perjury, and obstruction, and sentenced to 10 years in federal prison. And even at sentencing, the district attorney said Ian showed no remorse, no empathy for the woman he nearly destroyed. He is still filing appeals to this day, claiming the whole thing was a mistake. Which brings me to Leslie, Ian's best friend. And Leslie is the reason I was day drinking at 10 a.m. Okay? Leslie, believing in Ian's innocence with her entire chest, and in some ways, she's the saddest part of this film because she's not really a villain. She's just a person who knew this man for years and never truly saw him, which is kind of the whole point. The Ian that she describes is the Ian that everybody believed, including a whole police department and a court. That is how abusers hide. But then Leslie tips over into something that she can't defend. She sits there after the conviction, after the evidence, tears in her eyes, and said that there's no evidence that you could show her that would make her doubt Ian's innocence. No evidence, ever. And the logic she leans on, the one so many people lean on, is basically innocent people don't plead guilty. Now, let me take that apart. because it's dead wrong, obviously, but it's dangerous, okay? First, innocent people plead guilty all the time, all right? Every single day in this country, when you are sitting in a cell and the prosecutor offers you a deal, take this small charge and go home in a few months, or roll the dice at trial and risk years if the jury gets it wrong. Plenty of innocent people take the deal, not because they did it, but because they are terrified, because they are broke, because they cannot afford to gamble their whole life on 12 strangers. A guilty plea is not a confession of the soul. It is a business decision made under a mountain of pressure. Innocence has very little to do with it. Second, and this is the part that makes Leslie's logic collapse completely. Look at who pleaded guilty in this exact case. Angela. The guilty one took the plea. And look who refused to plead. Michelle, the innocent one. Michelle sat in jail for 88 days rather than admit to something that she didn't do, and it very nearly cost her everything. So the real lesson of this story is the exact opposite of what Leslie is even talking about. The innocent woman would not plead, and the guilty woman did. If anything, innocent people do not plead guilty would tell you that Ian is guilty, since the person clinging hardest to "I did nothing" is the man a jury already convicted. Guilt and innocence are not what decide who pleads, okay? Leverage decides that. Fear decides that. Money for a good attorney decides that. Michelle had parents who gambled on a defense attorney and forensic experts who cracked the timeline on the emails. Not everybody has that. So when you catch yourself thinking a plea proves anything on its own, please remember Michelle sitting in that cell, innocent, refusing to break. So what happened to everybody? Right? Michelle was cleared. The charges were dismissed, and the district attorney stood up and called her an innocent victim of a diabolical scheme set up by Todd. Okay, he didn't say that last part. She later sued Anaheim Police Department, arguing that they were not prepared to investigate something like this properly. And given how fast they believed the badge over that woman's testimony, she kind of has a point, all right? Angela did her roughly 5 years, changed her life, moved out of state, and now reportedly works in advocacy. Interesting. Ian is still in federal prison where he deserves to be, still appealing as far as we can tell, and insisting that he did nothing. But here is what I'm actually left with. This was sold to us as a toxic love story, and the title is doing a lot of work because the real toxin was never just Ian or just Angela. The toxin was the story underneath all of it. The story that told Michelle a good girl endures a beast until her love fixes him. The story that told Angela the surest way to be loved is to be pitied. The story that told a police department to trust the man with the badge and the paperwork. The story that told Leslie that loyalty means never looking at the evidence. Dum-dum. Every person in this documentary was running a script that somebody had handed them a long time ago. So if you take anything from this breakdown, here's the thing that I want you to take away. Fairy tales are not always harmless. Being the good girl is not safety, and loving somebody does not mean you owe them your silence, your life savings, or your benefit of the doubt. Michelle survived the beast. My hope is that the rest of us learn to stop calling the prison a castle. Now, let me know down in the comments who you think the real puppet master was, okay? Was it Ian or Angela? Because the documentary basically admits that we ain't never gonna fully know all the details. But would you have believed the Marshal, or would you have believed Michelle? Now, don't forget to subscribe and hit that notification bell so you know every single time your girl uploads, and I will catch you guys in the next video. Peace.